growing economies, what you tend to find is that there are 4 or 5 factors over 20, 30-year period that have resulted in these rapidly growing outcomes for these economies, sometimes in excess of 15, 20% growth periods per year over 20 years. Most of the success is due to things such as exploiting opportunities in export markets, knowledge transfer from innovators abroad so that you can develop better products, a capable and effective government, ensuring that there are very high levels of savings and investments, and this process of what has come to be known as self-discovery, that, as the Chinese president once said, that you walk across the river by feeling the stones, that as a society and as an economy you figure out what the best interventions and the most effective mechanisms for generating growth are. Some will fail, some will succeed, but you try through a process of self-discovery. And those seem to be the combination of elements, along with standard things such as macroeconomic stability and so on, low fiscal deficits. They seem to, together in different forms and to differing degrees, have resulted in many of these economies. There's sort of 13 or 14 of them that have grown at a tremendous rate over a long period.
Now, the future of our economy lies in small, medium and micro enterprises, where entrepreneurship is the creator of jobs and of wealth. What needs to be done to develop this sector?
There are a whole series of areas where interventions can be had in terms of generating growth in the micro enterprise sector. I'll just pick one, and that is in the area of state procurement. You'll find that the state is the procurer of a whole range of goods and services from the private sector. There are unfortunately unintended or intended barriers to entry to these procurement schedules, if you like, for the informal sector or for micro enterprises in particular. If you don't speak English, if you cannot read or write, cannot get to the tender office, and you cannot fill in a form that has 500 pages, you will never get access to a state tender. That's a vital barrier to entry for micro enterprises. Yet it's a huge opportunity if the state works together with micro enterprises in providing those opportunities for them. And that's just one area that has worked successfully the world over, where you set quotas, where you limit the number of large firms that can access state tenders and so on, to explicitly grow the informal sector or the micro enterprise sector.
Now, a big deterrent for young people to become entrepreneurs and create startups are the strict labor laws. People seem to think that it's safer to work for an employer rather than start up their own business.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it depends, that's sort of, it's a difficult argument to make because it's either the cause and the effect, right? To some extent, the arguments that the elements, I wouldn't say the entire labor regulatory regime, but the elements of the labor legislation which need to be tweaked in order to create further employment. That's a separate issue from whether you would rather work for an employer because you feel labor laws are a problem. I think in the context of small and medium enterprises, it's probably the problem lies not so much on labor regulation, but rather on what we call product market regulation. That there are a whole series of barriers to entry in product markets that prevent micro enterprises from thriving in South Africa relative to other countries.
Lastly, South Africa is in an employment crisis with 33.1 million unemployed young people. What is the recipe for growth, employment and job creation?
I think, again, the many ingredients, the 3 or 4 that high growth countries have undertaken are important: high savings, macro stability, all sorts of things. I think at this point, in addition, what we need to think about as a country is very specific, what I call micro interventions. We need to look at alleviating or assisting the unemployed in searching for jobs through things such as a transport voucher. We need to consider credit and insurance mitigation support to the informal sector and micro enterprises to grow that sector. We need to re-examine the way in which large companies are invested in terms of employment generation. Changes in technological mixes through states incentive systems. So I think there are a whole range of factors and interventions that we can try. Some may fail, but certainly some will succeed, and it's those that will start closing the gap between where the jobs are and those who are seeking jobs are the ones that we need to build on.